Welcome, everyone. This is the GTM AI Podcast, episode number 28 with Meredith, Thatcher, and Dr. Lisa Chillingworth Watson of Accelerate AI, Inc. They deep dive with me into the topic of business transformation with AI and using their tech to analyze where and how to start implementing AI internally. This is sponsored by the GTM AI Academy, your go-to source for learning how to use AI in companies, teams, and in your individual workflow. Business impact over learning tools.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is Coach K, and today I have been looking forward to this day for many days, actually, because I finally get to have these two wonderful ladies on with me. I get to introduce you, which is going to be a lot of fun because I've been doing some studying on you both, but we were introduced from a mutual friend, Siobhan Thatcher, and I've been nothing but impressed with what you're all doing, and I had to have you on the podcast. So first, to Meredith and to Lisa, welcome to the podcast. How are you both?
Excellent. And great to be here, Jonathan.
Yeah, I love it. Doctor, I'm going to go through your whole thing real fast, your spiel. So Dr. Lisa Chillingworth Watson, you are the Chief Executive Officer currently of Accelerate AI, Inc. I love some things you've done in the background because I didn't know this, but I saw this on your background. You're the Chief Operating Officer for the Canadian Medical Association once upon a time. And then you guys have both worked together with Agile Work Solutions. You have an extensive consulting background, very impressive, which I love to see. And then for you, my dear Meredith, you also went through the IFMA as improved instructor. You are currently the Chief Engagement Officer of Accelerate. And yours is just, both of you have like amazing backgrounds. So I could spend 10 minutes just on your backgrounds, but you're a professional speaker through Canadian Association of Professional Speakers, which means you could probably train me on how to speak because I'm ruining it right now, but that's okay. And I just am very impressed with what you're doing. So I just want to say, first off, thank you for being here. Before we jump in, what I'd love to do, and I'll start with Meredith and we'll go to Lisa. I always ask this question to guests because I'm always curious. Tell me the story of you that's not on LinkedIn. How in the world did you get to where you are now and where you are with Accelerate? Meredith first, then Lisa.
Okay, that's a great question. My background is really as a serial entrepreneur, but I started in a family business. And my parents and myself had a commercial interior design firm for a number of years. My mother started it. I then joined, and then we gave my dad a 2-year job interview before we let him join full time. And we closed that business back about 15 years ago when my parents retired. And I realized I was finding, minding, and grinding, and it was too much. And with a bunch of staff, when we closed that down, I opened up a boutique workplace strategy firm and did that for a number of years, which is when I met Lisa. And Lisa and I started working together, and we were doing probably about 80% of our work together. And we started Agile Work Evolutions in 2019. And COVID had a real impact, obviously, on a workplace business. And we sold that company in January of 2022. And she called me at Christmas time and said, I have another idea. So here we are.
Here you are. I love it. And I just realized we haven't defined what Accelerate is. So Meredith, if you don't mind, keep going. Explain to me what Accelerate is.
Sure. Accelerate AI is a business that really launches into a new domain of artificial intelligence, but is based on our many years of business transformation expertise. And what we've developed is a AI business impact assessment tool. So we can very quickly give people an understanding of what the potential productivity and economic impact of AI could be on their business.
I love it. I have so many questions. We're not going to get through yet. So Lisa, let's get back to you. I'd love to hear the same story. So obviously you've worked together in the past, but tell me your journey from business transformation, your background to in the crazy world of AI. How'd you get here?
Yeah, it's a funny background, but like Meredith, I can give a big thanks to my entrepreneurial father. So I was able to cut my teeth in his small company. And of course, you learn every single aspect of the business. So I went on and had some very interesting roles, a lot on the operations side, even retail, and also led a national consulting practice for a global real estate firm. Have really had an opportunity to work both inside an organization at the exec level, but also as a consultant. So it's wonderful to be able to have multiple perspectives. And fast forward, again, I was Chief Business Transformation Officer for the CMA and other interesting positions. But Meredith and I found ourselves on the business transformation and workplace strategy, really finding that we're working together so much. And it was just such a great opportunity to be able to come together a number of years ago and say, listen, let's do this. And we've really never looked back. And similarly, our professions, our background has always been on giving leaders what they need. I think we pride ourselves on the fact that we can get under their skin. We really know what their challenges are, what their pressures are. And we stay true to that. So we're all about providing evidence-based data, strategic insights, and really helping to inform and expedite their decision making.
I love that. So let's dive in. Let's take AI out for just a second. Let's talk about business transformations. So when you guys, girls, ladies, when you go into a business, you start looking at what you need to change. You're looking at not only from the skill point of view and from like coaching and training, but you're also looking at like the structure and the process and pretty much everything that a company does. What parts of that do you feel have helped you to create, accelerate to make it so you can now implement AI as part of a new strategy?
Yeah. So I think looking across, if you can imagine the vast majority of functions in an enterprise, and say enterprise, really organization, it's private sector, public sector, not for profit. Interestingly, we continue to recognize similar issues, systemic issues, pain points. But I
Yeah.
think because we have such a deep understanding of the different functional groups and more importantly, how they are integrated, how they come together to solve for issues. That's really permitted us to develop and advance tools, methodologies, things that we know can help them. And one of the things that our clients always say is that you want something done, call them, because we are doers, right? Strategy is
Mhm.
great, and we need to understand business strategy. We need to know their goals, objectives, so that the team is aligned and guiding principles and whatnot. But we have an innate ability to cut through the noise and the inhibitors within an organization and coming in externally. We have the ability to basically propose new ways of getting things done and making it happen. And so that's really our approach to transformation is understand where the issues are. And we are that versatile that we can go into procurement, finance, sales, marketing, even IT. We've been helping organizations through digital transformation. So there's really no area I would say that we haven't touched. To your point, organizational structure, because it's all related. They're all enablers as to an organization's success.
I
Yeah, no,
love that.
and I think my background, we, as the family business, we were the first interior design firm with computer aided design in Ontario, probably in Canada, back in 1983. So I've been on the bleeding edge of technology before. And so I understand the reality of trying to implement new technology when you've got these old ways of doing things, you're trying to move to new ways, you've got to get the leadership on board, you've got to get the staff on board, and you've got to figure out the very practical, sometimes very technical challenges in front of you, but still make it make sense. And be able to showcase and defend the ROI of doing this. Why would you do it?
Right.
Yeah. Sometimes there's blind faith required to say, listen, we just know it's right. Other times we can prove it. But as Lisa said, we can get it done.
What I'd love to do is break down a couple of things. So, just to make sure for those who I've had the ability to talk to you about this more, so I have a little bit of an advantage, but let's just pretend for a second I have no idea what I'm talking about. So, as an example, you come into a business and you perform this assessment, and the goal is to understand either the processes or tasks that could be either automated with AI or amplified with AI. And then you present to the team or the company saying, because of this assessment, now we have a plan of what you can do. Is that accurate description? Or
Yeah,
am I
I think
off? Tell me where I'm off.
no,
Okay.
I think that's pretty close. Really, the genesis of all of this, again, stems from our continued desire, right? We want to help the leaders across all
Yeah.
industries, professions. So it's a rapid assessment, illustrates the productivity and economic impact, the use cases, which are critical.
Yep.
And yeah, it's at the occupational level, task level. And the beauty of it is, though, that we set out to do this in 3 weeks. So this
Cool.
is about quick. This isn't what would be a traditional approach up to 48, 50 weeks of discovery. But more specifically, the question we get all the time, and you probably heard this, Jonathan, is where do you start? Right.
Right.
And
Right.
so we help folks navigate that uncertainty, that ambiguity around AI, address the challenges that I'm sure you and your listeners are really familiar with. It's a long list, right? What the heck is AI? Really? what it can do
Right.
for me, what's going to do for my organization. There's the FOMO factor, like fear of
Yeah.
missing out, workplace implications. From the research that we've done, we know it's going to drastically change the way most of us work, right? There's going to be like 12 million occupational transitions in the next,
Right.
within this decade, right? There's scarcity around capability, capacity within organizations, competitive positioning, right? Who's doing what? Are we too late? And then
Yep.
I would say the demands from other stakeholders. So we're dealing with CEOs and they're saying, my board of directors wants to know what the heck my AI strategy is, right? And what are you doing? So ultimately, that's what we do. It's the assessment. And then from that, we develop the roadmap and make sure leaders are aligned on what their AI ambition is. So we put structure and data around the conversation and we just help them figure it out fast.
Yeah. So and this is for you, Meredith, because I know you, we talked about this actually earlier, but like right now there's hundreds of AI tools coming out constantly. So is the goal, and just make sure I want to make sure the listeners are clear. The assessment is not to say, here's a potential AI product you could have. It's more about your transformation part of it, right? In that scenario, we have all these hundreds of tools coming out all the time. How do you all decide and then recommend saying, okay, here's your gaps, here's where you're going to get most impact. How do you decide what tools you recommend to use to implement?
I'm going to step back a bit. So what
Please.
happens is the employees answer some questions, whether all employees or a subset. Management answers on
Yeah.
behalf of the team. And then what they're doing is they're identifying the occupations and the specific tasks that are being performed, how much time in a week we're performing those tasks.
Mhm.
All of the algorithms in the background help us define, therefore, what are those tasks that would benefit either by augmenting, partially benefit, or automating, fully benefit from AI tools of some kind. And then are the tools robotic process automation? Is it Gen AI? Is it machine learning? So our first step is help them sort out, by the way, yes, I know everyone's talking Gen AI, but that may not be your main
Right
focus.
on.
You may benefit more from robotic process automation. And then the challenge is we have a roadmap that we help walk them through. But one of the elements in that roadmap is some piloting and experimenting because there are new tools every day. We are in very early days. And so my suggestion is for organizations is get on board and start this formal process of piloting and experimenting, not the bring your own AI to work kind. We've decided, we've had a look. And what we do is we will identify 4 or 5 products that appear to be the top products within the use case or the application that they're specifically looking for. And so
Right.
we help them identify it. We are agnostic. We're not recommending one product and taking a cut of it. We're saying, here are some products. Let's test. Let's see what makes most sense for you.
Got it. So I think this brings up a lot of questions. I have anything from jobs to all sorts of stuff to talk about. But one thing that I remember Sam Altman talked about in an interview a couple months ago, where he talked about that people are so concerned about jobs being eliminated, and it's the wrong question. The right question is the tasks that AI can perform, whether that's 5-minute tasks, 5-hour tasks, 5-day tasks, and how much of that can be done. And are those even the things that humans want to do in the first place? So I'd love to hear from both of you. And Meredith, we'll start with you and we'll go to Lisa. Where do you see the balance between the conversation on jobs and tasks, and how should people be thinking about the healthy way, I guess you could think about it, of using AI versus being fearful of being replaced?
It's interesting. I would say back end of last year, we heard a lot about employees are fearful. What we're starting to hear now is employees are frustrated because organizations don't have a plan or they can't, or they're not seeing the plan. Because
Right.
we do see some leaders who are very fearful of letting employees know that they're considering it, but everything's moving much faster than anyone ever anticipated. And so that speed is moving forward. So as employees, we need to start thinking about AI as a companion or a teammate that's going to help us. And what are those tasks that AI could be doing? Our research is showing us, our first round of benchmarking is showing that on average across multiple different types of industries, that employees can save up to 10 hours per week per person, where
Nice.
AI can be doing those tasks that the humans don't need to do. And humans can now focus on what humans do best.
Mhm.
But it makes, when I say that, people say, okay, so if I don't need the 10 hours, what do I do with the 10 hours? Like, how do I spend that
Right.
time?
Yeah.
And we are seeing right now that the majority of tasks are probably augmented and not fully automated. And it depends on the industry. But some simple ones. I had a friend of mine who did a little bit of work with AI and said, I want you to write some construction specs for a 100,000 square foot commercial building, and taught it how to do it. And it did it in 40 seconds. And he said, and they were as good as somebody in my office would have written them, except that I can't hire people to write construction specs. Nobody wants to do it. So we start to
Right.
think about, is it grudge tasks that we want to really consider first? Is it the low hanging fruit across the entire organization? So our more administrative style tasks. Is it things that help us make a decision better? Is it something that's more customer or member focused that we want to go after first? So there's lots of different ways to think about the prioritization of what we do. And it's not all going to happen at once. And it's that
Yeah.
first step. We got to dip our toe in the water.
Right.
But then
But
the shock is, I just did this in seconds or minutes. And it's a task that I couldn't have done before, or it would have taken me weeks to do, days, weeks, whatever it might be. And now I have time freed up. What do I do with that time? So how do I interact better? How do I deliver services better? From go-to-market concept is, how do I get more time, face time with my client?
Right.
So if I don't have to fill out the forms anymore because it's being done automatically, how do I take that and use it as a relationship building opportunity?
Actually having more time for human stuff like relationship, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, Lisa, what do you think? What would you add to that?
Yeah. I would say, just as execs and leaders are trying to deal with the inevitability of I think employees are too, right? Meredith and I, we're both ProSci certified change practitioners. We've helped organizations through various transitions. We saw it, real challenges come forward with digital transformation, just putting in CRM, right, in an organization. And it's going to be, I would say, the same with AI, perhaps not at the same scale, but the focus then to shift within the organization on the necessity for the upskilling and the reskilling. And then again, if they are fearful of, oh my gosh, now I've got this whole day on my hands, right? That I've been liberated.
Right.
What am I going to do with it? That's where leadership has to step in, right? And make sure that there are programs and protocols and tools in place and metrics and measurements so that they know that those higher touch value add activities, particularly if you're in a customer service face-to-face type role, that it's actually happening on the average sort of 10 hours per week per person, the 1 day liberation that Meredith shared. And we had an opportunity to go in and take a look at the sales enablement roles. So the sales management representatives, practitioners, and we're showing between 18 and 24% of efficiency gain, easy gain, right?
Easy.
And so you go, wow, what do you do with that time? So as an enabler, you can say, okay, I could leverage AI to assume repetitive tasks, right? And in some cases, I don't necessarily need enterprise solutions for that. It's a good idea, but whether it's engagement, outreach, messaging, issues management, transaction management, all that sort of stuff, and then repurpose that for customer engagement, prospecting, quota producing time. We recognize it's really significant at the individual level, but what happens when you multiply that across an entire team, right? So an entire enablement team, right? So what is that? What can that potentially do? So I think really the leadership plays a big role in what we're talking about in terms of, okay, now what do we do with this efficiency gain? Because if you don't do anything, you're not going to have any
Right.
lift, right? You've got to
Right.
be able to harness it and again, take it and get something done with it. And
Right.
that's an important thing. Yeah.
I have two questions. I'm gonna segue a couple ways, but this time I'll start with Lisa, then go to Meredith. But I want to make sure I'm clarifying. When someone says, "What's your AI strategy?" and they say, "Yeah, we're rolling out Copilot," I'm like, "That's not an AI strategy. That's a product, right?" So what I'd love to hear from both of you is like when you're talking about AI strategy, define for me what that is. Because as an example, a lot of people right now, the only thing they can have examples of is like Moderna when they rolled out enterprise ChatGPT across the org, and so they have custom GPTs for the entire team, and they went through a training, and that's one of their AI strategies for Moderna. But I still wouldn't say that's a total AI strategy. It's just rolling out a product, right? So how would you define an AI strategy versus just rolling out some particular tool?
Yeah. It's really an understanding that this is the equivalent of the adoption of electricity or PCs or the
Right.
internet,
Yeah.
right? This is about broad adoption, right? Is going to get us there. It's about starting again with the organization, like the overall mission, vision, values, objectives, right? These are our strategic goals. And the AI strategy really has to encompass all kinds of things. So how are we going to embrace AI? How is it going to contribute to these objectives? So we think about things like governance, right? So
Yeah.
we're setting this up. And again, this is coming from a place where it's fairly nascent today, right? There's not the
There's
operational, I'm
nothing.
not talking about technical, but there's
Yeah.
nothing. And there's not the operational infrastructure, right? Or the human resource infrastructure. So all of that has to be created, right? So it's saying, okay, first of all, we have to establish guiding principle. AI is going to have to align to our business objectives, our organizational objectives. Then we need the governance in place, right? How are we going to set this up? Management, who's going to have the oversight? What's the policy, right? What's the framework around this, the legal, the ethical, the privacy, the security, right?
Yeah.
How is it going to operationally contribute? How do we, and again, through our assessment, for example, right? Identifying the necessary core workflows and tasks and use cases where it's going to apply. Where are we going to start in the organization and why, right? Is it going to enable us to extract the greatest value from this particular set and contribute the most based on our objectives? Is it revenue? Is it customer experience? And so on and so forth. There's the transition planning from a human resource state. We talked about the needs that employees are going to have, right, to be able to do this. There's the cross-cutting, integration. And we haven't even started down the IT path, right, in terms of the tech stack, the data
All this stuff.
that we need to get at. An AI strategy will encompass all of those. It's the people, it's the systems, it's the operation, and essentially the rules that govern. So it's really putting and understanding how each organizational function will contribute to this. But again, this is really broad stroke stuff.
I love it. Meredith, what do you think?
No, I would say even within that, we work with the client on what their ambition is. What does AI mean to them? Is it specific to department? There's a piece that goes in here and a piece that goes in there. Is it enterprise level? Is it helping us make decisions? Do we go to that level, or do we go all the way where it's just a core expertise of who we are? And then how
Right.
quickly do they want to do it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years? Because the strategy has to take that ambition into account. Is it, I want to get to enterprise level by the end of next year? Is very different than I want it to be a core expertise in 3 years or a core expertise in 5 years. And so that's part of the strategy, is pulling that together. But I think what's even more important, and this is something, my father was an IT guy from way back. He actually took his first AI course. It was a postgraduate course in artificial intelligence in 1973. But he's always said, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And so that's part of the exercise we have to go through, is we have to tease out, just because we can do all of this, where are the ones we should? What are the ones that align to our strategic objective as an organization? Is it competitive advantage? Is it customer experience? Is it employee experience? Is it talent management? What's it that's important to us as an organization? But I think more importantly is, what is it not? So if we're developing a strategy, is status quo okay? So you have to have those conversations. And often what we find at the executive team is one of our big skills is getting them to alignment, getting them some information, get some information in front of them, get them to alignment, and get a decision. What we've seen through COVID is so many executive teams are stalled. They're in analysis paralysis, and they're having a really tough time making some decisions. And so this is one of those ones that's important to help them get there.
Yeah, I love how when you're able to take sound principles and then layer on top of the AI thing or the AI structure, that's when really cool things happen. It's like I talked about this with your sister Siobhan, Meredith, about how you have to start with good enablement principles first. And then when you layer on top of the AI, then you're just like, you get really fast going. And I love how some things you're talking about have really good core foundational leadership or business principles that make it so the success can stick, not just be a nice fab. I have 13 minutes left. I'm trying to get through 3 questions for you because I'm going these directions. First one is industry. Do you find, I know you probably work with a lot of people, but are there industries you feel like that are better fit for both your product, your tool, and AI, and others who are not? Or how do you feel about industries right now? I'm sorry. I'll go with Meredith first, and then we'll go Lisa. Sorry.
So we know that AI will support every industry.
Yeah.
It'll support some more than others. Those who have a lot of, we'll pick utilities, for example. So we have linemen, so that there's a portion of their job that might have a benefit, maybe not as much.
Right.
But what we have shown through our benchmarking is that greater than 98% of the occupations have a benefit from AI of some capacity,
It's crazy. Yeah.
which is astounding when you think
That's
about it.
crazy.
And when we looked at our when we looked at our database of 1,000 occupations, 96% of those occupations out of 1,000 had a benefit.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that there's one industry that has a greater benefit. There's some that have an earlier benefit. So for example, they're showing organizations that have a lot of compliance, finance, insurance, banking, those kinds of organizations are probably in a better position because their data is so good, because of the compliance that they've been through. They've got really solid data. But every industry at some point is going to be affected. And the challenge is going to be, who's the first in your industry to get going? When we implemented CAD, the next competitor was 5 years after.
Wow.
Nobody's
Yeah.
going to have that kind of opportunity this time. There won't be the next person is 5 years later. They're going to be coming and stacking up almost like planes landing, one after the other, of organizations really taking this on. But I would say our experience is showing every industry has a benefit. We haven't found one yet where the benefit is particularly low. They're all sitting at 6, 7, 10, 13 hours per person per week in the organization. And that's
That's crazy.
astounding numbers when you think about it.
Yeah.
But-
Yeah. I think the only thing I would add to that, Jonathan, is again, sector agnostic, right? We can help everywhere. But truly, when we're looking at our go to market, right, it's
Yeah.
really who can we help the most? So who are we bringing value to? It's not going to be the early adopters of the technologically advanced organizations, Fortune 100, who are really figuring it out. Similarly, we look at manufacturing, heavy manufacturing. We'd say, okay, a lot of those in logistics, a lot of those might be advanced on some of the robotics, machine learning, in which case that's great. However, there are aspects of their organization. So they may have not even thought of tackling the corporate side of their business, for example, right? So they're very niche in terms of the applications that they've adopted. We can help them in other areas. So I think the bottom line is we just, when we're engaging in conversations, it's about where do you need help the most? And ultimately, does this make sense?
This is a side question, but hopefully an easy one. Like when you go into an org and you identify the tasks, do those tasks get identified from a job description or from like literally like a salesperson going in and saying, okay, I have these, I'm going to write down and think about my tasks. Like how do you really correctly identify the tasks that make the difference, not just the busy work? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We use a globally accepted occupational database. So
Got it.
those 1,000 occupations are represented by 20,000 tasks. So essentially, when we go into an organization, the participant is selecting their occupation, and then out of the
Listed
list of
for 'em.
tasks, they select the ones that they perform. That's right.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense. That's actually very smart.
Mhm.
This is why you're
we
doing
didn't have
this,
to
not me,
create
'cause
that. We didn't have
I
to
didn't even know that
create
existed. So this is good. You guys, so like, I would have to start from the beginning, but obviously you're the pros.
that.
Okay. So one thing I love is that you're pointing out the time. When I go into a sales team and I'm talking about value, and I'm bringing this up so you can hopefully answer a question for me, is that there's a difference between operational, tactical, and strategic. Like it's really easy to understand how machine learning, computer vision, Gen AI, like all the different types of stuff can have impact on the operational level. What I'd love to hear from you both is like more about both the tactical on a team basis or even company-wide, the enterprise impact or value of AI, not just from a time savings, but what does that look like? Or what should people look for when they're looking for kind of a bigger value than just time savings? Does that make sense? And I'll start with you, Lisa, and we'll go to Meredith.
Yeah. So again, is it time that they're looking for? Is it efficiencies, right? Productivity gains? Is it revenue generation, right? Is it, no, we want to enhance the customer experience. We're having a crazy time with churn and employee turnover. No, we got to make things better for our employees. So it's really that direction is going to come to us from the client. To give you an idea, we've just been working with a client in the financial services sector, and we've had the ability to go through their workflows and some of their core use cases. And for them, their priority is about efficiency so that they can free up their advisors to be able to really work on the client engagement and the face-to-face activities. And so we said, listen, there are 80%, there's just a huge amount here within these processes that RPA, robotic process automation, will address. So then we set out to illustrate for them how that would work and be able to accomplish that particular objective. So it's really driven, if I understand the question correctly, it's really
Yeah.
driven by the organization. Part of it is from what they are telling us, but a lot of it is from our assessment and the due diligence that we do quickly so that we can basically also help guide them, right? Most of them say, oh my God, like where do we start? Because there's so many opportunities, but we have to
Yeah.
define which ones are going to most closely reflect the value that they're trying to extract and meet those objectives.
Meredith, before you answer this question, I'm going to add a little bit of a caveat for you. How would you, adding on to the question asked originally about the operational, tactical, and strategic value, do you feel like people need to think differently about what AI can deliver in order to conceptualize those values? Like, what do they need to think about to really understand what value could be there? Yeah.
Yes. So
Yeah.
I think as human beings, our first approach is always what's the thing that's annoying me that I can deal with? Is it filling out a
Yeah.
form? Is it those operational things? And we don't think far enough and we don't think big enough. What
Yeah.
if it could do this? And so we sometimes go through a client where we ask them 5 what ifs. What if you have that? What's next? Okay, so we get that done. What's next? And so getting them thinking bigger and broader about the opportunity. And when we start to think about from a value point of view, and you think of your competitive standing in your industry, if you're really good at, say, customization and innovation, then I would really look there and say, how can we truly expand that we can blow it out of the water, that our ability to customize is faster and better, our innovation is better, we have a way to integrate with the client, our
Yeah.
design assurance of whatever it is that we need to create for them is better and faster.
Mhm.
But I don't think that we know just how big it can get and how big the opportunities are. But generative AI is really focused on content. Here's some content. When it's mathematical, here's the next logical word, and it does a great
Right.
job. But it's not predictive. So
Right.
from a sales perspective, what if I could predict the sales? Because I went and looked at both the micro and macroeconomic situation. What if I looked at this? What if I looked at that? And suddenly we're going to get insights that we never even knew were possible. And that's the part I think that's so exciting about this. It's not just the time and the efficiencies, but now I can do things I could never do before,
Yeah.
or I couldn't do
Right.
fast. It would take too many people, or the data wasn't good enough, or we didn't have the technology that could dig into the data and look at it in a bigger way. And so from a strategic point of view, where they not just implement AI, but think bigger, think broader, think more about what are some of those big world problems that we can resolve. And that there is a tool out there that can help us identify concepts that we've never been able to identify before and run through them. And we can give you 200 ideas now. And it's, oh, okay, so now I have 200. Where do I take that? And now can
Right.
that drive my thinking to something even more innovative and start to solve problems that we've never, ever considered? And that value comes from who we are as an organization and what do we deliver our clients and what are we really good at? So let's just get better and
Yeah.
let's be the best in our industry if we can do it.
I find that across the board that most people don't even realize what's capable with any type of AI, generative AI, whatever the case might be, predictive AI. So that a lot of times when people think I had no idea that was even an option to begin with. So my last question for you both, and again, this time we'll start with Meredith and go to Lisa. is in an ideal, if you were an employee and you walked into a company and they have the AI setup as far as the capabilities we have now, what does that look like? What would their experience be like versus what it is now with most people, which is chaos? What would you say?
That's a really good question. So I talked to a young man this week who works for a company he describes as Jurassic. And he said, I don't know how long I can stay here. And I
Yeah.
said, I don't know how long you should stay here. Because the longer you stay here where they're not embracing AI, the more difficult it will be for your job skills to be where you need them. But when I start to think about what is that experience like, I'm not even sure I can describe it fully because there are so many new opportunities coming. And I'm like you, I think that, wow, I didn't even know that was possible. I can go get my nails done for $5 a nail and AI
Right.
does. So it's everything that blows your mind. But I think what it is as for an employee, it's the opportunity to sit there and go, wow, this company is willing to take a risk. It's willing to try something new. It's interested in innovation, in driving out the grudge work, in sharing information. I'm now not relying on somebody over there thinking my title is good enough in order to send me the information I need by email, but it's available to me. So I have a much more holistic understanding of the organization, the tools and resources I have available, and the focus now is on the humans. What do humans do best, and how can we drive that forward?
Yeah, I love that. That was actually you have a great caveat. I was going to ask Lisa that same thing. In the ideal world, what is the human doing? What's the AI doing? So add on to that. But go ahead, answer either one, Lisa. I'll be happy with either one.
All right. So I think new employee coming into an organization, I would say that, it's probably no different than 5 years ago. But I think with the focus, it's about asking questions, right? It's about doing your own due diligence. You come into an organization and you want to know that they're going to be supporting you in a number of different ways. And I would say it's about asking questions. If we're talking about, AI and the importance of how it's going to help me in my job, how it's going to accelerate my career, I think it's about saying, do you have a COE? Do you have anything set up where you are really focused on AI within the organization? What
Yeah.
does your IT roadmap look like, right? At a high level, right? What are you doing? And then specific to my function, the group that I'm working with, right? What's going on there? What are the applications? How are the duties that I'm seeing that I'm being asked to perform? How are they being augmented or automated in any way? What does the training look like? Are you going to be upskilling me? So it's really about, as you say, cutting through that chaos, right? Very specific to the job, but looking downstream, right? Looking forward. And again, to your question of human-centered versus AI, we know the vast majority is about augmentation, right? Automation today represents a very small
Right.
portion. And we're looking in our assessment as well at AI's capabilities specific to today. So there's a lot of things that are just ad hoc, right? As is.
Mm.
But it's really about understanding that your organization is a progressive one and that they're willing to adopt and move forward and support. And we also get a sense of that by AI also has given us the benefit of excellent research at our fingertips. So
Yeah.
finding out about organizations, looking at and checking out other folks that are working there and or in similar roles, being able to compare organizations
Mm-hmm.
as well. Right? There's just so much knowledge out there and information out there that individuals can use to their benefit.
I love it. I know we're at time. I could literally go on with you two for a while, but I'll stop for your own sake. So you don't have to put up with me. But your website is accelerateai.ca. Just make sure I'm very clear. Accelerateai.ca. Is that the best place to get in touch with you both? Is there, or are you okay if I share your LinkedIn as well, or what you prefer?
Yep, both is good. Both is good.
Cool.
It's
Okay, good.
Meredith at or Lisa at accelerateai.ca. Pretty straightforward.
Nice and easy. I love it. And on there, I was just realizing there's also a video there. And obviously, if someone wants to get in touch, there's a demo button you can get in touch with. I highly recommend it because it is awesome. I've seen and heard a little bit more of the back end. So one of these days, I got to just piggyback with you guys and just see what you do. Cause I'm like, ooh, this sounds cool. I want to see this. But thank you both so much. Really appreciate you both. And just want to say thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, Jonathan. It was great.
No problem.
Thanks for listening to the GTM AI Podcast. Please follow, subscribe, like, comment, and come back for more.